We do our assignments, which are essentially homework, or as they say in Italy, compito. And the suspect photography assignment for June was street photography in the tradition of Henri Cartier-Bresson. And, Steve, let me put you out on the limb for a second here. Could you say a quick word about Henri Cartier-Bresson for us? We're not going to show any pictures, but just a quick word about him.
Yeah, no, arguably the most influential street photographer, if you will. Now, Cartier-Bresson, shot his entire life. I think he was 95, David, when he died a few years ago. But, he was one of those people that was lucky enough to be able to pursue a career in finger quotes because, it's not always an easy way to earn a living. Fortunately for Cartier-Bresson, he didn't have to. He was born into wealth. That said, he didn't take the easy way out. He did a lot of photojournalism. He was a prisoner of war for a while, but his main joy was to kind of wander the world and capture these little moments, the street theater, if you will. And, nobody could do it like him. Remember, he used equipment that was, by today's standards, not all that sophisticated. But that being said, using the zone focus method, it's essentially faster than autofocus because you don't need to focus. So he understood, with his f-stop and how the lens was set on his Leica, oftentimes with a 50 millimeter lens, that he knew what was going to be sharp, what was going to be focused, how close he had to be. And he was the master being able to compose and capture these decisive moments, a phrase he coined. And his work today is still very, very influential and inspiring.
Hey, if someone isn't muted, please everybody mute. I think as a host, I can make that happen, but if everyone could mute. Thank you, Steve, the decisive moment. That's it. That's what that was it. That was his gift.
Yeah, and the thing about, the world we live in, arguably, this kind of photography is the most challenging, the most difficult because things are out of our control. So somehow we have to, create some sort of order within the frame amongst the chaos to tell the story of that particular moment. And I think tonight we're going to see some great examples of that.
Okay, so I wanted to share quickly with everyone, if you didn't notice, that there is a Facebook group called Street Photography Cartier-Bresson Inspired. I joined it maybe a year and a half ago, and I really enjoy this Facebook group. It's a good community, and it's run by this guy named Peter Pickering. And I've come to know him through his posts on the Facebook group. And I'd say if you're into street photography, join it. And you'll be inspired, and there's really good commentary. And it's nice also if you want post your pictures and get some feedback, and just know if you're heading in a right direction or not a right direction. It's a really good crowd, and I'd like to say that the community there, the feedback is actually is positive. It's reinforcing. If you make a mistake and it's really bad, someone will say it, so it's pretty good. But I got to know this guy Peter Pickering, and I invited him to be one of the judges. But he is all the way on the other side of Australia, evidently. I think he said Western Australia. So he said, "No, mate, I'm not gonna. I can't get up at like 4 in the morning. I'm just not going to be good. But I'd love to help you out." So I asked him to go into our Dropbox that everybody who submitted photos and pick 12 entries. So he did that, and he also was kind enough to put a commentary for the entries. So what we'll do in this workshop, in this this homework assignment, I'm going to read Peter's words to you guys as the image is up. Leave the image up for a little bit. Then Steve and I will give a commentary on it. While I was researching Peter, I discovered his website, not just his Facebook profile. And I think it's so easy to forget the intricacies that are an actual website with a blog and people put information into. I know, Steve, you keep a great one, but peterpickering.com. If you're into photography, I believe that Peter is a beautiful artist and really is a great website. So go check out his worlds of creativity. It's much more than just street photography. Okay, are you guys ready? Steve, you ready?
I am. And just, just at the top, I have found, and I'm sure we have as an audience as well, that of course it's really important to get critique on our own work. but there's also so much we can learn when we look at other people's work and we start talking about it, things that we can learn that we can apply to our own work. So, it's not just, getting a critique of your own stuff. If you don't have an image in this particular race here, if you will, there's a lot to be gleaned from sort of the conversation that we're having, and just the being exposed to images, particularly ones that might be inspiring to you.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's 100%. I always look, crits are an amazing way of jumping up. But so here we go. Just in case, I want to just read to you quickly too. This is the criteria that Peter did. And my ethos in selecting the top 12 entries was to focus on photographs that not only demonstrated technical excellence, but also conveyed strong and emotional resonance and narrative depth. So you really kind of went into it. And let's start off with our first selection. And this is from Peter Marcus called Leaving the Subway. And Peter commentary was the photograph captures a bustling street scene with a young girl confidently ascending the subway stairs, creating a strong central focus. The composition is balanced, with different age groups depicted in various stages of movement, enhancing the dynamic nature of urban life. The use of black and white accentuates the textures and contrast, reminiscent of Cartier-Bresson style. The juxtaposition of the child's T-shirt message, strong like mom, against the busy backdrop injects a sublime narrative about resilience and urban upbringing.
Very nice. Did you want me to start, David, or did you want to
Sure, go
jump in?
ahead. Yeah, you got a minute.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. We'll keep it short. So yeah, I mean, I like this image too, and I think what Peter said. Fact is that when you're capturing these moments, the moment cannot be kind of underestimated, and the fact that because we have fast shutter speed, there are more than 1,000 moments in every second. So the way the kid is just got her foot up, her expression kind of looking up, it's almost a little surprising because we know this is an urban environment. No one in the image appears to be the guardian of this young child. This young child is, too young to be kind of roaming the streets of New York City on her own. But then, message of the strong, strong, that's also really kind of contributing to kind of what I'm ingesting when I see this image, and realizing that, yeah, the character of a person starts very young. And though this kid is very young, the DNA map of who she's going to be is already set to a large degree. And there's something kind of inspiring, there's something kind of nerve-wracking. And I'm talking not so much the aesthetic, but just kind of what I'm reacting to. And of course, we all bring our own baggage and life experience to images, but it's the strong images, as her t-shirt says, that are going to provoke some sort of an idea, some sort of a message. I mean, Cartier-Bresson said that some images are like a novel. There's a whole novel in it. And I think this is one of them where, you can kind of make up your own story. Maybe the woman on the top of the stairs is waiting for her. I don't know. But you can
It's
see the older people going in the other direction. She's young. You can see
the
her
only
face.
face, the only human face that's not printed forward. The
Yes,
lawyers,
yes.
and look at it's obviously Chinatown, right? I mean, it's a main street. It must be downtown, right? Because Chinese lawyers being advertised. There's a lot of detail, and also very strong that it's a square image. So Peter
Yeah.
Mark is shooting square. It's one of the few squares in the selection. Um, but
Yeah, squares. I mean, I tend to be a horizontal guy. I love the idea of maintaining the same aspect ratio because I find that your images don't sort of live just by themselves. They live within the other work that you're doing, particularly if you're doing this genre of photography where you're seeing a bunch of images. So I like to kind of have that consistent aspect ratio. A square is maybe a little unusual, which also makes it a little bit more interesting for
yeah,
street photography. We don't see that quite as often.
indeed. And I love this one also, the feet and catching that foot with that negative space of the lower subway behind the foot is just priceless. It's perfect.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
just a note too about words. I mean, yeah, we can see the strong. We can see, there appears to be, maybe that's in Chinese up there. But I mean, if you don't understand the language, you're not seeing the words and you're not getting that message. So it's a little bit of extra stuff. I find that in street photography, sometimes you can hang your hat on some words within the frame, but oftentimes I think it can be stronger to maybe not depend on that. Sometimes it's a little too obvious when you
Yeah,
have the
that's right.
juxtaposition of words, within in the frame.
All right. Well, congratulations, Peter Marcus. Lovely shot. Steve, keep this one in mind. We're going to be picking up a best in class that gets a discount to one of our workshops.
Nice.
And coming up next, we have Andres Lapadula, Snowstorm in the City, a humorous and surreal image of a woman on a moving walkway, her legs appearing to ride a skateboard. The composition is clever and the timing impeccable, creating an optical illusion that engages the viewer. The clean lines and the stark contrast between the moving walkway and the stationary elements draw attention to the subject. This playful approach adds a layer of whimsy to everyday urban life, capturing a moment that feels spontaneous and candid. This is a Bresson decisive moment. This photo was a photo of the week winner in our Facebook group, Peter Pickering.
Yeah,
Ah,
you start with this one, David.
I tell you, I like everything about it. I absolutely, what I think I love the most is 167 miles per hour. It has irony. It's got a little bit of humor to it. I'm a New Yorker, and man, oh, Shevitz, do I know when it storms and there's a blizzard comes through, even though with global warming, it's been a little bit less and less. But whoever is, please mute yourself.
For
Uh,
payment.
it's
And
a
I
stunning
just
photo.
found the receipt because I'm trying
Yeah.
to throw out all
Hold
my
on a
Oh, I
second.
think Marilyn,
and my
we
receipt
can
was
hear
for
you,
eight
Marilyn.
13.20, and I bought it by you, and I paid
Hold on one
99.
Yeah, you
second,
mute
everyone. We're going to
Marilyn.
stop the
How
share,
did
and then
how do you
no, we're going to mute Marilyn.
Oh,
Okay.
there she muted. Oh, she's muted.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't want you to say anything that will get you in trouble, Marilyn. So yeah, good.
Okay, let's go back to the share screen. No problem. Okay, that was the on.
I
Where
think,
did
with images like that, I think, for me, one of the things when I see an image like that is I could feel exactly kind of what that feels like. I think anyone that's spent time in a bit of a snowstorm when the wind is blowing and, a picture that can bring you right back there. I mean, I can almost feel the cold, I can feel the wind. Um, what I also really like about this image, and as David gets it up, um, is the fact that the wind is very evident in this image. I love the
And then you could
open
always
brief.
argue and say you never got it, but that'd be up to you at that
I
point.
love the open
well, why
briefcase.
wouldn't they give me a new one
Uh,
when I never
right?
I think there's you're
oy,
allowed
oy,
once
oy. Hang
so
on a
so
second.
every
often,
five
but I
years?
don't like
Oh,
I
hold
said
on. I'm
I don't
taking
know
a
when they
photo.
build that one.
Every 5 years they said that I couldn't get one until 20
Marilyn, if you can hear us, we gotta
2026.
mute you.
Killing
Comfortable
us.
day.
Yeah.
You gotta find out who you gotta find out why
Well,
and where it was built.
Yeah.
Say I never had one built and let them give you the information.
Yeah.
you, oh, okay.
You got it. You got it in.
I got it. All right.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. Yeah. Going back. So this is one of those images where, it's all about the moment and the content. And, when you talk about how a picture's worth 1,000 words, I think this one, if not 1,000, pretty close to it, in that immediately upon viewing this image, um, you understand exactly what's happening. You can feel the wind. You can feel the sort of the uncomfortableness. You also feel that, this woman is pretty well protected. She's well dressed for this kind of weather, which is a good thing. The moment's really important. I would like to, it's not even a deal breaker, the fact that that Andres has cropped off her foot. I would like to see the bottom of there, but again, the moments and the also the contrast of the dark and the light is really contributing to the strength of it. The visual weight and where the woman is within the frame, a little off center. You've got those other two characters on the left, sort of trailing away. And as David mentioned, with the 167 miles per hour wind, It really is a strong image.
Yeah, and I would also throw when I photograph snow, it never comes out like that. I kind of what's the best shutter speed for snow? Is it a 60th of a second? Is it when when the wind is 167 miles an hour?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And this snow is probably more of just kind of it's not so much the flakes, the detailed flakes, but you can feel it. And the fact that whatever shutter speed was used, you don't really see any kind of frozen flakes, I think just accentuates the sort of wind. And this is really more about the cold and the wind and the pushing against it in the other way. But and again, just even the strap and the open briefcase. I hope what was in there. The only thing that would make it better would be papers flying out of that
I
briefcase.
just I just noticed too, she's smoking as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Hilarious. That's in all that weather, you
I know, I
gotta
know.
smoke. That's hilarious. Yeah, I think also this photograph has so much going for it. I'm not gonna mind that the feet have been cut off. That's a little bit of a pet peeve. Everything's got to be perfect, but yeah, it's great. Andres Lapadula, wonderful shot. Snowstorm in the city. All right, keeping up with the New York City theme, we're going to continue by going to. Okay, we're going to go to. Whoops. Damon Webster, subway musician, 59th Street. The photograph captures a subway musician engrossed in his performance, with other commuters in the background. The focus on the musician's expressive face and his trumpet brings out the passion and dedication of street artists. The interaction between the musician and the listener adds depth, showing the unspoken connections formed in urban spaces. The use of black and white enhances the mood, reminiscent of classic street photography that seeks to capture the soul of the city. Peter Pickering's commentary.
Yeah,
Steve.
another great shot, David. I mean, again, the moment is really important. His eyes are closed, his cheeks are puffed up. It's a real decisive moment of playing this or these instruments. He's intense. You can almost hear the sort of loudness of the sound that he's making. And the slightly softer selective focus. A wide lens gives you more depth of field at all apertures, but the two gentlemen on the right are not seem to be bothered by whatever noise is going on. They don't even seem necessarily to be reacting to the musician, which in itself is kind of interesting and maybe even a little bit odd, or maybe they are smiling because of the music. The micro composition of the placement of his head and his hat in relationship to the background there. I think it's strong on a lot of levels. I think compositionally it really works. There's nothing. Notice the bottom of the frame, whatever that sort of ascot is. You see the little triangle at the bottom with a little black. I love the way his hat, doesn't intersect with the white light, on the left or that steel bar. So
Do
all
you
those
have a
things
problem
really
with
help.
the subject far right being split in half? Do you have a problem with that? Because I,
Me, you mean the two guys together? Oh, no, no, I don't. I feel that sometimes it's awkward to crop people at certain places like the joints, the wrists, the elbow, certainly the eyes or the lips. But I think in that situation, it works just fine. You've got his full face, you don't have his ear, but no, it works really well. And the fact is that, that's probably much less interesting than what's happening on the left. He's the biggest part of the frame. When you're physically close to your subject on the street, the proximity of being with a wider lens as opposed to a telephoto lens is something that is delivered, in terms of the communication, and it brings the viewer kind of right there, particularly in a situation like this where the loudness of those horns, even though we can't hear them, almost can. So it's particularly stronger. It's harder to work wider on the street because it means you've got a lot more in your images. So oftentimes by selective focus, you can help solve that problem by blurring things out in the back.
I think if I was there, I would have stepped back 3 feet. There's plenty that the subject, the shooter is a little bit more over the middle of the platform. Get back. I don't know. I'd like to see the three figures with the negative space in between. I like the soft focus. It's a nice bouquet. I don't care so much for the far left, the girders. But I think he's framed properly. I'm just thinking about coming back a little bit and a slight shift. But look, it's all good.
You know, one of the things about the street is that perfection is overrated, and oftentimes those little imperfections are not necessarily deal breakers. And in some ways, they could make the image a little bit more interesting in the sense that if everything was perfect, you know, it may not be quite so interesting.
Everybody, you should take a workshop with Steve and I because this goes on. We do have an ongoing argument about perfection, and
That's right.
I think it can happen. All right, David Webster, lovely shot, New Yorker, right on. All right, this one's beautiful. This is Audie Murphy, Woman and Child with Baguette, which we're going to talk about Audie Murphy in a moment, but this is from Peter's commentary. This image captures a candid moment of a woman and a child walking down the street, with the child seemingly about to eat the baguette. The casual nature and the lively expressions create a sense of everyday joy and spontaneity. The background elements, such as the restaurant sign, anchor the scene in a specific locale and in context. The black and white treatment adds a timeless quality, evoking the feel of traditional street photography. I agree with everything that Peter said. This is that decisive moment. And also, personally, I relate to this because when a baguette that I buy or have in my hands never makes it from the store to the kitchen without a bite off the top. So this kid's going for it. The mom is playfully pushing away. I, as a composition stickler, um, I think this thing has it all, basically. I wouldn't mind seeing it as a horizontal than a vertical, but it's great. I love it. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, reminiscent of Cartier-Bresson, if you Googled, and you guys, if you know Cartier-Bresson's work, you probably know the famous image of the young boy carrying the wine bottle, also taken in a French environment. Maybe this is France. And it's got a little bit of uh, a little bit of a connection to that image. It's funny, it's fun. I love the image of the baguettes in the background, just outside her head. That's a peak moment. You can see her mouth could not be any more wider open to be able to bite off from that very thick baguette. I love
Crunchy
the,
tip.
you know, sometimes we see the dance and you can see the synchronicity of maybe it's a mother and child. Their feet, you know, the moment is also good. The moment in terms of the mouth, I think, is more important than the legs, but the legs happen to be in nice synchronicity. Is relatively uncomplicated, even though, you know, there's a lot in focus in the picture, you know, the texture of the tile and the background. But that moment is unmistakable. And the fact that the child's face is kind of in the gray area there really just helps to make the image, makes you look, you know, that's where the action is, right where her mouth and the baguette is. So the magnetic quality of this image, I think that's where your eye ends up, right there. And you wish you were her because you want to take a bite of that thing.
That's it's a nailed it shot, 100%. I'm also I'd love to know if Audie Murphy is here in the audience, if they want to unmute and say hello. Isn't the name also a very famous World War II veteran who famously jumped on top of a disabled tank and held off a platoon of Germans and then went on to a Hollywood career? Audie Murphy. I'm pretty sure of that. That's I can't get over that name. Okay, uh, moving on. Well done, Audie Murphy. Thank you for your service. We're having fun here. Zoltan Harsany, Clown on the Gate. A performer or a street artist hangs dramatically from an ornate gate, their expression and costume adding an element of theatricality. I can't believe I actually pronounced that right. The intricate details of the gate contrast with the dynamic pose of the performer, creating a visually engaging composition. The focus on the performer's intense expression draws the viewer into the scene, emphasizing the artist's commitment to the craft. The image captures the essence of performance art in public spaces. Peter Pickering commentary. I'll jump off on this one. We'll alternate, Steve. Uh, it's odd enough that I like it. It's very evocative. It could be a photograph from the 1930s. It could be modern. I kind of dig all that. Um, that being said, I think street performers offer a quick road to a successful street photography shot. And I don't mean to take anything away from this shot, but certainly photographing a street performer, I find is almost the same way as photographing a saxophonist, or it's almost easy because this person's already in makeup and it's looking good. That being said, the spirit is there, the decisive moment. I like the way the eye, I like the lighting. Look at the bouquet, and this bouquet, this is really good bouquet because it actually gives you a hint. Look at the out of focus highlights on the underneath her shoulder, and you see how they're hexagonal. So this was probably shot at f2, maybe 2.8, and it created that beautiful out of focus bokeh going on. So well done, Zoltan Harsanai. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I like it for a lot of the same reasons that you described. I think that for me, I would have considered, and it's all, hindsight's always 2020, as they say, a looser crop because she appears to be kind of up high, and maybe I'd like to sort of see a little bit of, how high, maybe a little bit of scale in terms of where she is in relationship to what else is there. I think that, you can't go wrong by isolating her the way Zoltan did. I would maybe lighten her face a little just to draw a little bit more attention to it, because that's kind of where the action is. But I wondered if there's a looser version that might just give a little bit more of the scale, potentially even seeing, who else is there in that situation. Um, and I give the photographer the benefit of the doubt that, there's a reason why you go in tight because it's hard to clean up otherwise. But maybe just a little bit looser to see a little bit more of kind of the environment that this street performer is working in could make the image a little bit more interesting, add an extra layer of communication to kind of what's going on. But it still works very well the way it is.
Yeah, good critique on that. Okay, thank you, Zoltan, again. Heading to our next one. This is Jeffrey Rothberg, dog walking. A couple walks their dog across a cobblestone street with a clock tower in the distance. The composition is well balanced, with the leading lines of the street drawing the eye towards the couple and their pets. The textures of the cobblestones and the soft light create a nostalgic atmosphere. This image conveys a sense of tranquility and companionship, highlighting simple yet meaningful moments in urban life. Peter Pickering's commentary. Who went first on the last one, Steve? Is it you?
I think you did, so I'll go first on this one. Um, I like the complexity of this image. If I sort of squint and just look at all the shapes and the textures of the road and the buildings and the lights on the buildings and the clock tower and those lamps and the circular lamps and the circular sign. And then we look at the content of the people. For the most part, all the people, we have their backs to us, except maybe that one gentleman where you can see partially, him coming towards you, but you only see part of him. I think it's interesting, again, from a content point of view, these two people walking the dogs. Obviously, the dogs are important. It looks like there's like a dog carrier there. And then the woman with the cane is a little bit different in that, she doesn't have the companion there. She's a little bit older, so there's a little bit of a story being told in that one. I think that shooting from behind oftentimes can be really interesting and iconic. In some ways, though, it can be more challenging and interesting to sort of see the front version. But I think it works. I like, again, the synchronicity of, the right leg of the woman, the left leg of the man, both in the air at the same time. The dogs themselves are doing pretty good. And all the chess pieces, as I like to call them, the images of the people, are nicely spread out for the most part. So yeah, there's a lot to kind of look around and see in an image like this.
I agree with all your points. It's a dynamic image for certain. There's a lot going on. That BMW that's crossing the front, it's like that would really bother me, but it's kind of okay in there because of multiple stories. So I'm going to take everything that you said, Steve. I'm going to say this image nails it, but I do have some questions though. And my questions are, is that, is it a little over processed? There seems to be a heavy processing, or was it a vintage shot on film? It looks like a modern shot just from some clues in terms of style and the make of the car, but it the grains up on it. There's a fair amount of post going on. I'm not going to say that this post takes away from it. Maybe the post saved it. Maybe it's a little over processed and it's all good. Just someone, not someone, Jeffrey Rothberg took the slider and pushed over a couple of things a little bit too much. Um, I I like to think that the sliders, the clarity sliders, and those things are like alcohol. In moderation, it's great. If you push the slider too much, you take away. There's a heavy grain to it. Um, so I wonder if it's a save or it's intentional, or if I can offer a critique if it's a really solid image, maybe just don't hit the grain so much.
Yeah,
Um,
and on that front, David, one thing I might say is that if you took all the people and even the cars out of it, you'd have, a really kind of interesting, strong kind of juxtapositions of shapes and textures and so on and so forth. And then you've got, an interesting group of people walking their dogs from behind. There's a synchronicity there. And in some ways, they're competing with each other a little bit, and neither one of those two main subjects which this photo captures is necessarily, strongly in the lead. Obviously, the people and the dogs, I think, would take a little bit of that, but so in a
right.
way, they kind of neutralize each other to a certain degree.
Look at the face in the van too. Picking up the face in the van. This is like this reminds me of like an album cover from 1978 that like a Pink Floyd cover that you get stoned and you just keep looking at that one album cover and you kind of see something that you didn't see before every time you look at it. Um, yeah, it's great. Well done, Jeffrey Rothberg. Okay, moving along. Lori Novak, Reflection Puddle. A stunning reflection shot capturing a cityscape mirrored in a puddle. The symmetry and the crisp details make this image visually arresting. The reflection adds a layer of abstraction, encouraging the viewer to see the familiar in a new light. The person walking adds a sense of scale and human presence, grounding the image in reality. This photograph exemplifies how street photography can turn everyday scenes into works of art. Peter's commentary. I think I'm back to up. I'm to start this off saying I love this shot. It's it's a beautiful image. Um, Nailed it. I think that Lori may have seen this shot and gotten ready. She earned her photograph because she got really low. It looks like an uncomfortable position to wait for someone to go through. And the subject who went through looks like they belong in that environment. The reflection is perfect. I do hope, Lori, that you turn for a horizontal. I used to be a big vertical shooter myself, and uh, working with Steve this year, I've become so horizontal-esque. But it's such a great shot. The horizon's perfect. I love the leading lines. I love the the vanishing point, the action with the legs. Take it away, Steve. What do you think?
Yeah, again, bringing back Cartier-Bresson, he's never too far away. The 6 degrees of separation with all our street images and him, because he did it first. But his famous shot, the decisive moment of the gentleman sort of jumping over the puddle, has a lot of kind of what this has in terms of the symmetry of the reflections, which is really interesting. I think this image works really well. There's also the possibility that you could even crop it a little bit differently, maybe crop a little off the right, maybe have the woman a little bit closer to the edge of the frame, maybe even crop a little bit off the top so that the reflection becomes sort of even more prominent. We would lose that symmetry, but that's just something to consider. And the moment really works. I think it works. I think it's the kind of thing where you stay there and just keep waiting for different things to go by. And I think this woman dressed kind of in light colors. I mean, backpacks are my nemesis, as David knows. Sometimes they don't often look pretty in images, but it's the way it is. A lot of people have them. But patience, more patience equals potentially even stronger images. But I think this image really works. I think Laurie did a great job of recognizing this puddle and making it really kind of the main event in this particular image.
I like the dimension in the puddle better than reality. Look at
Yeah.
right, there's a better grayscale in the puddle than in reality.
And
It's
I know a lot of us out there, maybe in the audience here today, love reflections. And one thing I've done, because there are no rules, is that you can take this image, you can crop her off at the feet and then turn it upside down so that you're looking at sort of the reflection kind of right
Christopher
side up,
Nolan.
if you will. And that's fun to experiment with. I've done that before, and it can be very effective as well.
It's very Christopher Nolan of you. Okay, so well done, Laurie Novak. Our next one up is a personal favorite because I know this gentleman, and I just want to say that Peter picked out his 12 images. I had zero input. I didn't give him any direction. So it's nice to see Lothar Troller. So well done, Lothar. I did send you some messages on Facebook saying you got picked, you got picked. This photograph captures a serene moment of an elderly man feeding birds, highlighting the connection between humans and nature. The man's gentle expression and careful handling of the birds evoke a sense of peace and kindness. The image is reminiscent of Henri Cartier-Bresson's style, with its focus on a candid, intimate moment and the subtle play of light and shadow. The blurred movement of the birds adds a dynamic element to the composition, emphasizing the spontaneity of the scene. Well done, Lothar.
Yeah, I think it's really nice. I mean, I love the blurriness of those birds. In a way, it becomes a very sort of dreamlike quality. And again, it's interesting how an image sometimes, for different people will deliver different messages. But for me, um, aside from the reality of what is actually happening of this gentleman, this stylish gentleman with the beret holding these birds and these birds sort of kind of fading into somewhere else, the way, the fleetingness of life, the speed at which life moves, birds being able to fly. We can fly in our dreams. There's a dreamlike quality. I know I'm getting a little crazy here, but this is what happens with photography. This is where the thousand words comes in. It's obviously an image of a gentleman holding some birds, but in some ways it's so much more than that. I mean, it's also, it's not it's sharp, but it doesn't have that kind of
Great.
it's got that vintage quality like it could have been a Cartier-Bresson
I don't think
image.
vintage quality. I think it is because I'm looking
Oh,
at. It looks like um, the Lothar allowed this scan of a negative. I see a rebate edge around the corners.
hmm.
Yeah, this isn't cropped in Photoshop, and I'd also venture to say that that grain that looks like Tri-X or HP5. Um, yeah, I think this is a film shot. I mean,
Yeah.
I we can find out.
Only David Brommer would not only know the film, but at the time it was in the developer and the stop bath just by looking at the image. You are
11 and a half minutes.
that's very impressive. Um, Again, being sort of the Debbie out downer nitpicky guy, and it's not at all a deal breaker. And I'm sorry to even bring it up if it upsets anyone, but just where his nose and eyes are, where the black is there, is just a little bit of an annoyance, if you will, where the black is right under his nose comes into and maybe no one ever saw it, and then maybe I bring it up and that's all you can see. It's not a problem, but if you move slightly to the right, he can just be in this sort of bokeh area, and it would be a little less severe in terms of the
Look,
placement.
look at the negative space around the back of his beret. That
Yeah,
beautiful white that comes off of it.
you're right.
Steve, I'm surprised you were. Debbie Downer and a nitpicker. What? Like, how out of character?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, as much as I said about, that front area, David, you're the antidote, because the way the hat fits within that sort of white area behind works really, really well as well.
Yeah, I didn't notice the black line. I don't even know if it really bothers me
No.
necessarily if it was all white or not. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's a great shot. Well done. Well done, Lothar. Okay, let's continue on. Mario Calandrino, Cigar Factory. This is Peter's take. This street scene features a candid moment of two people conversing outside of a cigar shop, with a prominent motorcycle in the foreground. The composition draws attention to the cultural elements of the setting, such as the signage and the stylish bike. The image is well balanced, with the motorcycle adding a touch of rebellion and freedom. The relaxed posture of the individuals and the details of their surroundings tell a story of everyday life and leisure, aligning with the principles of street photography by capturing the essence of a particular place and time. I forgot who goes first.
Okay. What do you think? Do you want to go, or do you want me to?
Yeah, sure. Okay. A couple of things bother me on this one, and I'm a Harley guy, so I want to love it. But here's we go. The front wheel is too close to the end of the picture. That kind of bothers me. It's also shot at an oblique angle, which I would have stepped 10 feet to the right, back about 3 feet, and got it, or tried to make sure that the moments there, the candid, they don't know a photographer is taking a picture. And sometimes, to be honest with you, with a big Harley like that, you could stand right in front of these people, googling the Harley, and they won't even think they're having a picture taken of them. But I don't like that it's at that oblique angle. It needs to be at a correct angle. I like that it's black and white. Because of that angle, the top of the picture to me is a little dirty looking, with the lines are just not placed properly. And there you go. I'm sorry I was a Debbie Downer on that one. It was pretty rough. But Mario, I feel like, and Stephen, I always cover this in the workshops. Straight on, the minute you go at that angle, lines change, and it's difficult. I'd rather photograph like Edward Hopper paints, and really get the lines and the perspectives all in order. That's my take.
Yeah, I think for me, what I think is maybe potential shortcoming, because I do like the composition. It might be a little tight on that front wheel. The back wheel is really nice, the way her shoes, there's a little room between the back wheel and the woman's shoes. The two people interacting is kind of interesting, but I think that, there's a lot in focus in this image. So you can definitely scour the bike, which is beautiful. You see all the signs and the bricks and the letters, and then you see the people and their t-shirts. I think the moment's kind of interesting between them. But because so much is so sharp in a way, you don't really know kind of where to go. I mean, definitely you end up sort of where the people are, and I love the little coffee cup there. Of course, I'd love to see a puff of smoke and a big cigar. I think it's maybe more interesting than the Cuban coffee, but can't always have that. But again, patience is the thing in street photography. And as much as, we're always telling people, look, the more time you spend, the luckier you get. And sometimes in my own experience, it's not even a question of like spending all day, but just an extra, if my instinct is, this has got some potential, but I think I'm just going to go and move on. Take an extra 30 seconds, an extra minute, an extra couple of minutes, and see what happens, because not usually or not always, definitely, but sometimes the magic will be there. Maybe one time out of 10, one time out of 12. And because the world is out of our control, when we have that potential, as there is here, sometimes it can get even better. So I think that the depth of field, because there's so much, that's sharp in there. I think compositionally was well done. Um, but that's what I would say to that.
Good commentary. I really like your point about if those cigars had been producing smoke, that could have been photographing smoke could have really been dynamic. But good crit on that one. Mario Calandrino, congratulations. Peter Pickering picked you, and we dissected you. Keep going. All right, the next one is a great shot because it is evocative of a lesson that you will be taught when photographing on a street photography, passionate photography workshop with Steve Simon. You will visit a museum. Rich Cox, museum visitors. This photograph depicts visitors walking past a large painting in a museum, flanked by two statues. The blurred motion of the figures contrasts with the stillness of the art, creating a striking visual effect. This composition is symmetrical, with the painting serving as the central focal point. The juxtaposition of the moving people and the stationary art pieces suggests a dialogue between the past and the present, as well as a dynamic relationship between viewers and art. This image captures a contemplative moment, inviting viewers to reflect on the experience of observing art. Steve?
Yeah, so there's a lot that I really like about this image. I know that, oftentimes, you're not on a tripod, but with the cameras we have now and the incredible stabilization that they employ, we can do really slow shutter speeds to blur things that move and get super sharp images of these two sculptors and the painting itself. Even though you don't see at all the kid, to me, the kid's reaction is maybe the strongest in that she's looking up at this sculpture. I don't know what she's thinking, but there's definitely something going on there, even though you don't even see her face, but you can almost sense kind of what's going on with her. There are two people on the left. And again, it's easy to critique. It would be nice, perhaps, if, those two people were a little more to the left and they didn't quite enter that beautiful ornate frame of that painting, and they were a little more in the blank space. Again, it's not really a deal breaker. But you might even consider, and I love the symmetry of the two sculptures that are lined up. But in order to maybe add emphasis to the little girl, I might even take one for the team and crop out that sculpture on the left, and this way the little girl becomes even more important in her reaction. Plus, the actual painting becomes a little bigger because it's cropped out. But I love the texture and the sharpness of the sculpture and the paintings in relationship to the flowing nature of the people and the little girl viewing them.
Yeah, I think Rich nailed it. Good point about the crop. I kind of put my hands up and cropped out the one side, and it holds up well that way. I do prefer it the way it is. The dialogue between the two statues, the sharp Cézanne, and I guess this is a photo that you could take with modern cameras with image stabilizers. Um, that's just it works really well. I love the lighting is superb. I love the negative space of the background. Um, I mean, if I was to offer a critique, maybe a separation between the two figures that are behind the little girl, maybe I wouldn't mind seeing the guy over a couple inches, maybe not into the Cézanne frame. I don't. I Nah. I mean, it's all. I think this is a nailed it. It's a great shot. Sort of reminds me of Lens Baby work. It's really particular because look at her feet. The sculpture is quite, and the pedestal is moving. Interesting shot. Yeah,
Hmm.
really cool. Very interesting.
Yeah, and just as an aside, oftentimes, sometimes on the workshop, if the weather's not great, we'll go to a museum. But you know what? There's no reason just because the weather is bad. Shooting in a museum can be very challenging, but also very rewarding in that, as you can tell from this image that Rich made, it's beautifully curated. The way, the art that goes into the presentation in a museum, you know, provides a lot of raw materials for us as photographers, and then we look for sort of reactions and similarities between the art and the people, and the light is not all that strong, but our modern cameras allow us to get fast enough shutter speeds or slow shutter speeds, as in this case, to make a strong image. Very
The
challenging,
key for this
but
kind of
very rewarding, right, David?
I 100%. I would have never thought being dropped off in a museum and being, I don't say forced, but really seeking the photograph in a place, a church of art, so to speak, a museum, a cathedral of art of epic proportions, and you're trying to photograph people looking at this art and interacting with it. I mean, it's a great assignment. Love it. Great work, Rich. Awesome photograph. Yale Epstein waiting in Manhattan. This image captures a group of people waiting at a bus stop in Manhattan, each engaged in their own world. The diversity of the individuals and their varied activities create a rich tapestry of urban life. The composition is busy but organized, with the vertical lines of the building and the bus stop sign anchoring the scene. The image reflects the hustle and bustle of city life, highlighting the coexistence of different narratives with a shared public space. The black and white treatment adds a timeless quality, emphasizing the universality of the experience of waiting.
Yeah, maybe now's a good time just to mention thank you to Mr. Pickering, who unfortunately is not with us, but he kind of is in that he took a lot of time in doing the sort of written
Rocks.
insights into these images, which make it a little easier for us to jump into for sure. So you want to start with this one, David?
Yeah, sure. I first off, I love it. I love this shot. Yeah, great work. I I adore it because I've been shooting on the streets, and I love the lineup of people waiting. It creates an interesting thing. I nailed a shot in Mount Saint Michel that I adore, and it's people waiting. But what I really like about this, and I'm looking more at it, is that I, there's not a mobile phone or a cell phone to be seen. I see some big DSLRs, but I don't see any mobile phones, and I adore that fact. When was this picture taken? Was this taken in 2006 before the iPhone? When the iPhone was 2008 or 2007? I it's a vintage shot. Um, I adore it. I like the lines. Everything that Peter said, I'm with. The exposure could be a little better. It's a little hot. I don't know if it's just the monitors, the files, but like the older lady being held something or being passed something. She's a little hot. The lady with the white jacket in front of the garbage can, she's a little hot. I think this could probably be processed a little bit better. I love no standing, and then there's people. Great eye composition. Oh, good, lovely.
Yeah, I love these kinds of pictures. I often shoot these kind of pictures. For me, the strength of this is in the chess pieces, and by chess pieces, I mean all the little individuals in this image. The three stars of the images to me are those two young kids by the bicycle and the one younger person next to that little blonde boy. Those three differentiate themselves from the rest of the crowd for the most part, even though there may be a couple of kids on the right side, but their expressions are very kind of obvious and strong to me, and they're the ones that I kind of land on to a certain degree, particularly the little girl and that one kid, just sort of the thinker, just sort of pondering life as he waits. I noticed that like in Chinatown, isn't in the Chinese culture 888 is a very a lucky thing, and there's another 8 in the top corner of the frame.
Yeah.
I never would have guessed this was more of a vintage image, but then in looking at that, if it's a garbage can or whatever, it looks like it's an
Oh,
older kind of cell phone in that image.
that's right. I looked at this earlier when I was building the slides, trying to figure it out. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
look at it the second time. That's a yeah, this is 2004. That's a oh God, what
interesting.
were they
Yeah.
called? The iPhone destroyed them.
Okay. Yeah, like
Uh,
a Palm Pilot or something. I don't
Pompo.
know.
No, was it a well?
Yeah.
No, it was a
Blackberry.
thank you, a
BlackBerry. Okay,
Blackberry. Yes, a
gotcha,
Blackberry.
gotcha.
Whoever that was, thank you so much.
Yeah, but
Yeah, a
it really has a
Blackberry.
modern feel. I guess there's something when I look at the bus stop feels a little bit older, like,
Yeah,
but I think the quality of the image allows it to sort of live very comfortably. Unlike the bird image that we saw, which definitely has that kind of vintage quality, this one doesn't have that. It feels like it could have been made today, and I like it, just for it's almost like the Last
I
Supper. You
hold
can
on a second.
scan it for a long period of time and not get bored. There's a lot to see in it, and I think compositionally it works, and I think Yale did a great job with this image.
I disagree with you, Steve. You could find this photo today, but that obliquely, like your backpack is my cell phone. They would all be cell phoned out, and it would just be so indicative of 2024 and the way we interact with our phones.
Very good points.
And
Very good
really,
point.
that changes it up. Look at the size
Yeah,
of the cameras too. I
yeah.
want to throw something else out too. I really looking closely at the people. What is going on behind the woman who's kind of pointing at us? She's right next to the bus schedule. She's looking at us. Look behind her. Is that a? Is she? Is there a? Is she harboring a spirit behind her that's following her? It's kind of weird, right?
Yeah, there's something a little weird there. Maybe she's noticed the photographer and she's pointing to the photographer going, I bet you
But look at.
someday,
But isn't there a
20
guy
years from
behind her?
now,
A
David
guy behind
Brommer's
her.
going to look at this image and critique it.
It seems. No, it looks like there's an arm. It's bizarre. Um, but yeah, it's a great shot. All right, we're at 1 hour, so we're pretty good on time. I'm impressed. We've seen all 12 images. We have a lovely commentary. So it is that time now for Steve and Dave to say best in class. So whoever wins this gets $150 off any Steve and David workshop. And you're also going to be featured in the Suspect Photography newsletter when we throw out the YouTube video for this. So you're going to get you have to save some money, come on a workshop, hang out with us. It's a lot of fun. And Steve, let's go back and pick one. Have you taken any notes? I'm gonna run
Well,
through them.
listen, I mean, I know what I would pick, and I'm willing to say it now. There's a lot of strong images there, but if I had to choose one, I kind of know which one I would pick, and it's the one you just had on the frame,
It's the
the snowstorm image.
snowstorm in the
Just
city.
because of the way this image communicates to me, I just feel what it's like in that environment. It brings me back. I've been there, done. I'm from Canada, so maybe I'm a little biased. It's more like that in Canada than it is even in New York. But um, that my instinct went to that one.
I will. I like Lothar's quite a bit. I will
I do
acquiesce with
too.
you. Um, I think that's actually I would go with that one, Andre. It's a complex photo. It's got it all. Andreas Lapadula, Snowstorm in the City. You are the winner. So
And this is not math or science, and art is not a democracy. But it is true that in my experience, the strong images do rise to the top, but it's very easy to pick a different image, if
yeah,
we had to pick one. But, because we did, and, sometimes it's your gut that just says this, and then, an hour later, oh, I would have picked something different.
100%. So I'll send an email out, and you'll get featured in that. The one thing with these were all formidable images. These were all really good images. Steve, we do a lot of crits, and sometimes some doggies are on new photographers will come out that just don't really work. These images were pretty damn good. So Peter, who rocks, Peter, thank you so much. I'm glad Steve, that you acknowledged that he really did put in the work for this. Um, Peter, this is Peter's pick. So, as everyone, just to know how Peter's pick of the images, he sent in the 12 images that were not in any order, but this is Peter Pickering's pick. Can you say that 3 times real fast? Peter Pickering's pick, Peter Pickering's pick, Peter Pickering's pick. Snowstorm in the city.
Oh, there you
Here we
go.
go. The compelling mood and strong composition makes this a powerful image, capturing the essence of city life under extreme weather. He hooked up Lothar, second feeding the birds, the photo cells, and capturing a tender, timeless moment with excellent composition, strong emotional connection. Beautiful. And then, he called out the subway musician. This image captures the soulful intensity of a subway musician, blending raw emotion with a gritty urban backdrop, creating a compelling and intimate moment of street life. Also, on behalf of Peter, he also wants to say these selections balance creativity, technical skill, the spirit of Henri Cartier-Bresson, and the ability to effectively convey a story or emotion through a photograph. So thank you so much, everybody, and especially thank you, Peter. Wanted to just leave this slide up for a moment, and we'll take it to
I wonder what other people would have picked in the audience if they agree with us or they have other favorites. Maybe in the chat you can just put your pick if you had one. It's just to out of curiosity. I bet you if we did sort of a poll of everybody out there, that the 3 images that Peter picked would definitely be in the top 10. I see some people are agreeing. Boy coming out of the subway, yeah, that's another strong one. Larry likes that one, absolutely. And there's no wrong answer ultimately, because when the work is strong, in some ways it's a little bit harder. Robert likes the subway musician. I did too. So yeah, it's really kind of interesting. And sometimes, the critiques can make you change your mind as well. When David pipes in, or I pipe in, or Peter pipes in, and makes you see something that you wouldn't have seen otherwise, then you end up, oh, you know what? Yeah, okay. Now that you say that, I agree. Yeah, a vote for the baguettes. Rick is obviously hungry, so he went with the baguette image. So
pretty cool. Yeah,
it's very interesting because again, and that's the thing about, those of us that are interested in the competitions, if you will. I think they're good to enter, but you can't place that much value on them because, it can be very wonderful if you get some affirmation, positive affirmation, but it also can be a little bit distracting and not necessarily helpful. Same with Instagram and likes. Not always the best pictures get the most likes. So it's food for thought in that regard.
Yeah, we kind of said best in class just to really kind of gamify things and put something out on the line there, kind of make it a little worthwhile. Anyone who creates work like this is a winner straight up. So it's
yeah, keep in mind, out of all those entries, Peter, chose these. So, I mean, it was not these were not chosen at random by any means.
No, and there were a lot of images. There were well over 60 submissions. So it was he did the work. And all right. Well, I want to thank Peter Pickering again for being such a champ and coming to the rescue here and being our editor for Steve and I to work on it. Again, I would say go back to the Facebook group. It's really a fun group. There were links on the first email I sent last week. Also, the fun continues on Thursday night. We're hosting Lester Lefkowitz. He's going to be talking about his macro work, and I just want to show everyone exactly what Lester is going to be talking about. It is these 2 amazing tombs on macro and close-up photography. And I think Lester's there in the audience. But that's going to be on Thursday at 6 o'clock. So come back and join us for that. And stay tuned for the next photo assignment. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you, David, for inviting me. Happy to come back at any time. It's always it's always educational to work with you, and that's why, I really look forward to our collaborations that we're doing.
Thank you so much. Thanks again, Steve. And thank you, Peter Pickering, and everyone who joined us.